On the night of June 24, 2026, 77-year-old Lionel Richie, the Grammy-winning former Commodores frontman and current American Idol judge, sat down in the middle of one of his own songs and told a sold-out arena he was dizzy. Minutes later, he walked off the stage, and he did not come back. This is the story of what happened that night in St. Paul. What we actually know, what we don't, and why a moment like this lands so hard when it happens to a man who has been the sound of celebration for half a century. Let me start with the part that's solid, because there's a lot of noise around a story like this, and you deserve the version that's actually been confirmed. It was opening night, the very first stop of the third edition of the Sing a Song All Night Long tour, a 26-date run across North America that pairs Lionel Richie with Earth, Wind & Fire. The venue was Grand Casino Arena in St. Paul, Minnesota. The tour was supposed to roll from that opening night all the way through the middle of August, finishing in Austin, Texas. Hours before the show, Richie was online and clearly posting about rehearsals, sound check, and showtime, telling St. Paul they were up first. There was no warning, no sign that anything was wrong. He took the stage and played for about 55 minutes. 9 songs in, he reached one of his biggest hits, Dancing on the Ceiling, the 1986 single that's all bounce and joy. And that's when something shifted. Richie sat down on a platform on the stage and told the crowd he was feeling dizzy. He kept his sense of humor about it, the way performers often do when they're trying not to scare a room. He told them, "When you're feeling dizzy, sit your ass down." He pointed out that this was the first time in the entire history of Dancing on the Ceiling that he'd performed it sitting down. And then he said something that, looking back, carried more weight than a joke. He said, "That's a bad sign." He moved to the piano. He performed 3 times A Lady Seated, one of the most beautiful ballads he ever wrote. And you can imagine how that landed in the room, this legend singing a love song to a crowd while quietly fighting to stay upright. When it ended, he called an unplanned intermission. His words were simple and a little heartbreaking. "Intermission," he said, "so I don't fall over," and then he left. The band stayed out there. For about 15 minutes they held the stage, and you can picture the crowd not quite knowing whether to worry yet, whether this was a normal break or something else. Then the musicians filed off too, and the minutes kept stretching. Around 40 minutes after the intermission started, close to 11 at night, a member of the band, saxophonist Dino Soldo, stepped up to the microphone and gave the room the news nobody wanted. Lionel wasn't feeling well. He wouldn't be able to continue. More information would come later. The venue followed with a short statement from Richie's team, and it said almost exactly the same thing. "Lionel is not feeling well. We won't be able to continue with tonight's show. That's it." That was the official word that night, and honestly, that restraint tells you something. Nobody on his team was going to speculate in public about a 77-year-old man's health while he was still being looked at. Now here's where I want to be careful with you, because this is exactly the point where a story like this usually gets twisted. After he left the building, multiple outlets reported that paramedics met Richie backstage and that he was taken by ambulance to a local hospital as a precaution. TMZ reported it first, citing sources close to him. Other outlets followed, including one that quoted a local official confirming that an adult male was transported from the arena to a hospital that night. So the hospital trip is widely reported, and it's corroborated across several outlets. But I want you to hear the exact shape of it. It is reported. It is described as precautionary. As of the day after, there was no named hospital, no doctor on record, and no official confirmation from Richie's own management putting their name to it. That distinction matters, and anyone telling you they know exactly what happened inside that ambulance is getting ahead of the facts. The same goes for the cause. You'll see the word dehydration attached to this story all over the place. Here's where that came from. Earth, Wind & Fire's drummer, John Paris, spoke to the Minnesota Star-Tribune and said Richie had shown no signs of illness before the show, and described him as a little dehydrated. That's it. That's the source for the dehydration explanation. It's a bandmate talking to a newspaper, offering his read on the night. It is not a diagnosis. No doctor has said it. No official medical statement has confirmed it. It might turn out to be exactly right. It might turn out to be incomplete. But it would be dishonest to hand it to you as settled fact. So I'm handing it to you as what it is. A bandmate's impression. And there's a small human detail in that same report that's worth sitting with. The Star Tribune noted that Richie performed those 55 minutes in a leather jacket and leather pants, under stage lights, visibly sweating. A 77-year-old man, opening night energy, heavy clothing, hot lights. You don't need a medical degree to understand how a body, even a famously durable one, might run out of road under those conditions. So let me give you the honest status, the one that respects both Lionel Richie and your intelligence. As of the reporting the day after, there was no confirmed diagnosis. There was no confirmation that he'd been discharged. There was no statement from Richie himself. And the next show on the schedule in Chicago was still listed as happening, but a ticket listing staying up is not the same as a promise that the show will go on. Reporters reached out to his representatives, and the reps did not immediately respond, which is again not sinister. It's just a team protecting a man while they figure out how he's really doing. I want to take a second on something because it shapes how you should read everything you see online about this. Lionel Richie has been the target of fake death hoaxes more than once. There was one earlier in 26 that got debunked. There were others before that. These things circulate constantly for older, beloved celebrities, and they're designed to grab a click and break your heart for no reason. So when this story started moving, healthy skepticism was the right instinct. But this is where you separate a hoax from the real thing. This event is real, and you can tell it's real because of how it's sourced. It was reported by serious outlets with editors and standards. There was first-hand video from people in the room, posted in real time. There was a statement from his own team read inside the building. There were named witnesses, his fellow musicians, speaking on the record to a newspaper. A hoax has none of that. A hoax is a screenshot and a prayer. This was a documented night with dozens of witnesses, so if you see anyone online claiming Richie was in critical condition, understand that this directly contradicts everything the credible reporting actually said, which was that the hospital trip was precautionary. Don't let the loudest, scariest version of a story replace the true one. Here's something else that gives this night context. Just 5 days earlier, on June 19th, another legend had his own scare on stage. Rod Stewart, 81 years old, had to stop a show in Utah to take oxygen, telling his crowd that he nearly fainted up there. A lot of people pointed to the altitude of that venue. But put those two nights next to each other and you start to see a pattern that's bigger than any one artist. These are men in their late 70s and 80s still running full arena productions, still giving audiences 2 hours of movement and energy and emotion, night after night, city after city. The shows haven't slowed down. The bodies eventually do. And there's something both inspiring and a little terrifying about watching performers who refuse to stop being who they've always been. Because for Lionel Richie, a man born in Tuskegee, Alabama, who went from the Commodores to Motown solo stardom, who wrote and recorded Endless Love with Diana Ross, who co-wrote We Are the World with Michael Jackson, who gave us Hello and All Night Long and has been handing American Idol contestants the hardest critique of their lives since 2018. This was never just a concert. It was another night of being exactly who he has always been. And that's why a crowd sits in an arena long after the lights have changed, hoping the man they came to see is going to be okay.